of terrorism. Again, I'm not going to get into any explicit analysis of these misconceptions. The first one is that it's not a byproduct of poverty. It's not about being poor, right? There's millions of poor people throughout the world, maybe even billions of poor people, probably billions of poor people throughout the world. And those poor people aren't going to become terrorists. So the idea that you can say poverty is a source of terror is completely fallacious, right? It's just fallacious. Number two, not simply a result of anti-U.S. sentiments, right? This is important, right? Not. This cause of terrorism is not simply anti-U.S. stances, right? This war on terror and the terrorist ideologies that are used to recruit young, new, fresh bodies, right? The cause of terror isn't anti-U.S. The cause of terrorism is an ideological distinction between those who support democracy, America being sort of the leader, the global leader of those who support democracy. U.S. says, hey, we're all about democracy. We fight for democracy, right? And those who oppose democracy, right? So what's fueling the debate isn't just the U.S. versus Al-Qaeda, right, or the U.S. versus some other terrorist organization. It's not that at all. It's they, the quote-unquote, they, terrorist organizations, tyrants, and to be technical, I don't necessarily mean, nor does the literature mean tyrants, and necessarily the tyrant having political power, right? These can also be sort of non-governmental groups. It can be intrastate groups. It can be cells and so on. Tyrant in that sense, right? So there is an ideological disagreement. There's an inability to see eye to eye because we're on two different sides of the pole. One end of the polemic is a defense of anti-democracy. One end of the polemic is a defense of democracy. There's no room for debate. There's no room for debate. It really is a battle, if you will, to the death, because there is no room for the debate. The way that someone like me factors into the debate, the only reason I get involved is because there is a threat, an ideological threat, on the belief that there's only one governing way to interpret or understand the world. There's only one proper ideology, and as a theorist, as an academic, as an educator, as a defender of education, now it's I have to contribute what I have, the brain side, to the war, right? I have to do my part. As we saw in the quote from the beginning, the war on terror has been both a battle of arms and a battle of ideas. And that's what I do for a living. That's what I wrote my dissertation on. Ideologies, specifically the type of ideologies that are specific to terrorist organizations, is what I've done. I framed it in genocide, but I realized, wow, you know, this is, you know, I've been trained for this. I can put my 2 cents in as well, right? So it's not just about anti-U.S. stance. The point is, it's a war. It's an ideological war, and any democracy that supports, any government that supports democracy, not just the United States, is at war with us, right? If I'm part of the a terror cell, and I recognize that I can't attack the United States, I can't really put chinks in their armor, I'm going to go for somebody else. And this is why it becomes problematic for the rest of the world. The rest of the world is not going to be able to sit by and stand on the sidelines while the United States goes in, because you're sort of captivated by you being a non-U.S. democracy is captivated by the struggle that the United States is having with Al-Qaeda and all these other terrorist groups. And while you're distracted, you become the target, right? Because as I've said before, and you know, I hate to have to think like this, right? But as you said before, what do? You go after the weak guy, right? You're for democracy? Guess what? You don't have the power that the U.S. doesn't have. You're a target. You're a target, right? And one by one, the more states, the more weaker, smaller democratic states that are overthrown, is the stronger and stronger the other group gets until you have the final battle, right? Then you have, this is where you have, you know, doomsday scenario type stuff, right? But there's not going to be any final battle if you keep on trying to do the same thing. It's a waste of time. Actually, it's not a waste of time. I would imagine that it would be encouraged because it's futile. It's a real futile battle to fight, trying to attack the United States at this level rather than, you know, another level. And as again I said, this lecture is not an easy lecture for me to give at all. 3, 4 misconceptions. Third, it's not simply about this Israeli-Palestinian issue, right? It's not. That's definitely at the heart of it, right? But it's not. It's too broad an issue to just describe it in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Palestinian, right? It's not simply just the Israeli-Palestinian issue, right? It's not just a product of poverty. It's not simply anti-U.S. stances. It's not simply Israeli-Palestinian issues, right? Hamas and all that other stuff. It's not just that, right? It's more than that, obviously. 4. So this would be 4 misconceptions about the causes of terrorism, and then lastly, number 4, terrorism is not, right? Terrorism is not simply a response to our efforts to prevent terror attacks. Right? It's not simply a responsive stance, right? The Al-Qaeda network targeted the United States long before the United States targeted Al-Qaeda. Indeed, the terrorists were emboldened more by perceptions of weakness, and I underlined it, and I linked, I think, 87, I did, I linked to the idea of perceptions of weakness, right? So, it's not just me saying this. I saw this time and time again in the literature, and it's invariably the case that since all of the powers that be, right, all of the democratic governing bodies, all of the intelligence states, all of my research states, all of my experience and my educational training states, the rest of the democratic weaker nations are at risk. Period. Period. So actually maybe it's not a problem me saying it, because maybe they need to know that. Right? It would be better for me to do a video like this, so, you know, the hubris though, to think that anybody significant is watching my videos is hilarious. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos. I don't know where I am in this part of the segment of the lecture, but maybe 15 people will watch this video. So, but regardless, I've done my bit, you know. So if, you know, if it's any good to anybody, maybe they'll look back in time and say, well, yeah, he said that, but we didn't realize he said that until like 25 years later because we weren't watching it. And I don't care that people aren't watching it. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I really don't. I'm compelled. I'm compelled to do it. But listen, if I were a terrorist and I'm not trying to tell terrorists how to, and I'm not trying to support them, and I'm not trying to give them information, it's not like that. But if I were a terrorist, that's what I would do. And it's not me saying it, it's perceptions of weakness. Perceptions of weakness, right? So the rest of the world, if you're a smaller democracy and you have representatives watching my video, you need to really get your security in line, because, you know, where the lion smells blood, the lion will attack and chase, right? So perceptions of weakness is going to be a significant threat to non-U.S. democracies throughout the world, and the weakest of the non-U.S. democracies, all the way up to you get to the strongest of the democracies, being the United States of America. You know, it's going to be a battle from the bottom up. The idea that the battle is going to be a top-down battle it's laughable at best. More than perceptions of weakness, than by demonstrations of resolve. Terrorists lure recruits by telling them that we are decadent, easily intimidated, and retreat if attacked. So they lure them with that. They recruit them. They were able to successfully crash planes into the Twin Towers and collapse the Twin Towers, but resiliency holds true, right? There needs to be a recognition that you can try, but we're equipped. We're ready for this. We were built for this. We were built for war. We've got the brains and we've got the brawn. So what becomes a real threat, as we saw, isn't just an attack on the homeland. There is a threat for that, but it's not as dangerous as the destabilization of democracies, non-U.S. democracies internationally, the destabilization